In this video, we are going to talk about the GHAN journey beyond rail. This article is about the train service in Australia. For the Australian outback cameliers from Afghanistan and India, see Afghan. For other uses, see GHAN. The GHAN is an experiential tourism-oriented passenger train service that operates between the northern and southern coasts of Australia through the cities of Adelaide, Alice Springs, and Darwin on the Adelaide-Darwin Rail Corridor. Operated by Journey Beyond Rail Expeditions, its scheduled traveling time, including extended stops for passengers to do off-train tours, is 53 hours 15 minutes to travel the 2,979 kilometers. The GHAN has been described as one of the world's great passenger trains. The service's name is an abbreviated version of its previous nickname, the Afghan Express. The nickname is reputed to have been bestowed in 1923 by one of its crews. Some suggest the train's name honors Afghan camel drivers who arrived in Australia in the late 19th century to help the British colonizers find a way to reach the country's interior. A contrary view is that the name was a veiled insult. In 1891, the railway from Corn reached remote Oodnadatta, where an itinerant population of around 150 cameliers were based, generically called Afghans. The GHAN Express name originated with train crews in the 1890s as a taunt to officialdom because when an expensive sleeping car was put on from Corn to Oodnadatta on the first return journey, the only passenger was an Afghan, mocking its commercial viability. By as early as 1924, because of the notorious unreliability of this fortnightly steam train, European pastoralists commonly called it, in ribald fashion, the Afghan Express. By 1951, when steam engines were replaced by diesel-electric locomotives, this disparaging derivation, like the cameliers, had faded away. Modern marketing has completed the name turnabout. Operations. The GHAN was privatized in 1997 and has since then been operated by Journey Beyond Rail Expeditions, initially as part of the Serco Group. Great Southern Rail was sold to Allegro Funds, a Sydney investment fund, in March 2015. The train usually runs weekly. During December 2012 and January 2013, it ran only once every 2 weeks. Until 2016, a second service operated between June and September. The train stops at Adelaide, Alice Springs, Katherine, and Darwin. The stops at Alice Springs and Katherine allow time for passengers to take optional tours. Each train has 16 to 38 stainless steel carriages, built by Cumming, Granville, in the late 1960s and early 1970s for the Indian Pacific, plus a motor rail wagon. The average length of the train is 774 meters. 2 Pacific National NR-class locomotives haul the train, previously N-class or a DL-class locomotives assisted. Starting in August 1929, the GHAN ran on the Central Australian Railway, originally built as a 1,067 mm narrow-gauge railway to Alice Springs under Chief Engineer, Commonwealth Railways N.G. Bell. In 1957, the 1,435 mm standard gauge Stirling North to Mary line opened, and the GHAN was curtailed to operate only north of Mary. In October 1980, the remainder of the line was replaced by a standard gauge line built to the west of the original line. An extension north from Alice Springs to Darwin opened in January 2004. Construction of what was then known as the Port Augusta to Government Guns Railway began in 1878 when Premier of South Australia William Jervois broke ground at Port Augusta. The 1,070 mm line reached Hawker in June 1880, Beltama in July 1881, Marie in January 1884, and Oodnadatta in January 1891. Work on the extension to Alice Springs began in 1926-16 and was completed in 1929. Until then, the final leg of the train journey was still made by camel. Although there were plans from the beginning to extend the line to Darwin, by the time the extension to Alice Springs had been completed, the GHAN was losing money, and the plans for further extension to Darwin were suspended indefinitely. The original GHAN line followed the same track as the Overland Telegraph, which is believed to be the route taken by John McDowell Stewart during his 1862 crossing of Australia. The GHAN service was notorious for delays caused by washouts of the track. A flat car immediately behind the locomotive carried spare sleepers and railway tools, so passengers and crew could repair the line. The very uncertain service via this route was tolerated because steam locomotives needed large quantities of water, and Stewart's route to Alice Springs was the only one that had sufficient available water. Initially operated fortnightly, in the 1930s, it was increased to weekly. From 1956 until 1975, it operated twice weekly, before reverting to a weekly service. During World War II, the service had to be greatly expanded, putting great pressure on the limited water supplies. As a result, demineralization towers, some of which survive to this day, were built along the track so that bore water could be used. When a new line to Alice Springs was built in the 1970s, the use of diesel locomotives meant that there was far less need for water, thus allowing the line to take the much drier route from Tarcoola to Alice Springs. The last narrow-gauge service departed Alice Springs on 26 November 1980. In October 1980, a new standard gauge line from Tarcoola on the Trans-Australian Railway to Alice Springs opened, and the train took the form it has today. The new line is approximately 160 kilometers west of the former line in order to avoid floodplains where the original line was often washed away during heavy rain. It was also hoped that the construction of the new line would improve the train's timekeeping. The first GHAN on the new line departed Adelaide on 11 December 1980. It initially operated as a broad gauge service to Port Pirie, following the conversion of the Adelaide to Crystal Brook to standard gauge in 1982. It operated as a standard gauge train throughout. Operating weekly, a second service was operated between May and October. In November 1998, one service per week was extended from Adelaide to Melbourne, while from April 1999, the other was diverted to operate to Sydney via Broken Hill. The extensions were withdrawn in November 2002 and March 2003, respectively. Construction of Alice Springs-Darwin Line was believed to be the second largest civil engineering project in Australia and the largest since the creation of the Snowy Mountain Scheme. Line construction began in July 2001, with the first passenger train reaching Darwin on 3 February 2004, after 126 years of planning and waiting and at a cost of $1.3 billion. The GHAN's arrival in Darwin signified a new era of tourism in the Northern Territory, making travel to the region easier and more convenient. The rail link will allow for more freight to travel through the region, leading to a hope that Darwin will serve as another trade link with Asia. In preparation for the connection to Darwin, one of the locomotives was named after wildlife expert Steve Irwin, an international symbol of outback Australia, to promote the new service and tourism to the region. If you like the video, please like and share. Thanks for watching.